cluster bomb unleashes a devastating barrage of explosives, blanketing an area as vast as a neighborhood or an entire small town with lethal force. These weapons, lacking in precision, have wrought untold agony, leaving behind a dangerous legacy of unexploded ordnance that endangers civilian lives long after the echoes of conflict have faded. In this video, witness the terrifying power of this bomb, a testament to the profound impact and enduring danger of these indiscriminate instruments of war. Cluster bombs originated in the aerial bombings of World War II, designed to maximize damage over broad areas against enemy troops and equipment. However, it was during the Vietnam War that their use and the controversy surrounding them came into sharp focus. The United States, seeking to disrupt supply routes and target enemy concentrations, dropped millions of these munitions over Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The legacy of this extensive use is still felt today, with countless bomblets failing to explode on impact, continuing to cause injury and death decades later. The following years saw cluster bombs used in various conflicts, including in the Balkans, Afghanistan, and Iraq, with each instance reigniting debates over their humanitarian impact. Despite the international outcry against them, military forces continue to use cluster bombs due to their ability to target dispersed enemy forces and equipment. As a result, cluster bombs are still present in arsenals around the world. Cluster bombs operate on a simple yet devastating principle. The weapon begins as a large container. This could be a bomb dropped from an aircraft, a shell fired from artillery, or a rocket. This container is designed to open in mid-air or upon impact with the ground. When the container opens, it releases a multitude of smaller bombs, often called bomblets or submunitions. These bomblets can number in the hundreds, dispersing across a vast area. Each bomblet then functions independently. There are several ways these bomblets can detonate. Some bomblets explode the moment they strike a surface. Others use timers, causing them to explode a set amount of time after release, maximizing the spread of damage. The most insidious type detonates when touched or moved, making clearing areas contaminated with cluster munitions extremely dangerous. Cluster bombs offer terrifying flexibility because the bomblets inside them can be mixed and matched. Some cause widespread injuries and destruction through blast and fragmentation. Others contain chemicals like napalm or white phosphorus designed to ignite intense fires. Though far less common, some cluster bombs have been designed to spread deadly chemical agents. This horrific design ensures cluster bombs inflict maximum devastation, both immediately and across long periods of time. Unlike precision-guided munitions, a single cluster bomb can blanket an area the size of several football fields with explosives. Within this area, there's no distinction between combatants and innocent civilians. Men, women, and children are all potential targets. This makes cluster bombs particularly devastating when used in or near populated areas. The danger posed by cluster bombs doesn't disappear when the initial explosions fade. A significant percentage of the bomblets released often fail to detonate as intended. These unexploded duds effectively become landmines scattered throughout the targeted area. They pose a lethal threat far beyond the end of active conflict. The impact on communities is catastrophic. The immediate blasts cause horrific injuries and widespread loss of life. But even if they survive the initial attack, people face a dangerous future. Unexploded bomblets contaminate fields, making farming impossible. They lie hidden in roads and paths, making everyday travel a potentially deadly gamble. Attempts to clear these explosives are painstaking, dangerous, and expensive. Reconstruction efforts in affected communities can be delayed for decades due to cluster bomb contamination. The horrific humanitarian consequences of cluster munitions sparked a global movement to eliminate these weapons. This culminated in the Convention on Cluster Munitions, an international treaty adopted in 2008. The treaty comprehensively bans the use, production, transfer, and stockpiling of cluster bombs. Importantly, it also mandates assistance to victims and clearance of contaminated areas. Currently, over 100 nations have become states parties to the convention, demonstrating a strong international commitment to ending the suffering caused by cluster bombs. However, progress remains incomplete. There are still prominent nations that have not yet joined the effort. Some countries continue to produce cluster bombs or maintain large stockpiles of these weapons. Others, while not actively producing cluster bombs, refuse to rule out their potential use in future conflicts. This lack of a universal ban perpetuates a dangerous reality. Cluster bombs remain available, and the risk of them being used with disastrous consequences continues. As we move forward, a question may arise. Can cluster bombs destroy tanks or such armored vehicles? The answer is yes, and there are many variations of it. One example of an anti-tank cluster bomb is the CBU-100 Rockeye II. It is part of an American cluster bomb family that is specifically used in an anti-tank mode against armored vehicles. This munition disperses 247 Mk-118 Rockeye submunitions, each designed to penetrate armor. The high-explosive anti-tank bomblets are effective in engaging area targets that require penetration to kill, demonstrating their utility against armored formations. The BL-755 is another noteworthy cluster bomb, developed to address the threats posed by modern air defense systems that made traditional bomb and rocket attacks against armored formations highly risky. The BL-755 contains 147 submunitions that are ejected to scatter across a target area, each designed with a small heat warhead that can penetrate the top armor of tanks and armored vehicles, which is typically thinner and less protected. This munition was developed for delivery from low altitudes, allowing aircraft to avoid detection and engagement by enemy air defenses. The United States decided to send cluster munitions to Ukraine in July 2023, aiming to bolster Ukrainian efforts against Russian forces. The type of cluster munition provided by the US is based on a common 155mm shell, chosen for its compatibility with artillery already supplied to Ukraine. Despite the high dud rate associated with cluster munitions in previous conflicts, the ones provided by the US reportedly have a dud rate lower than 2.35%, which is considered to reduce the risk of unintended civilian casualties. Cluster munitions have been used by Russian forces in Ukraine on several occasions, according to observers and humanitarian groups. These attacks, documented or reported in at least 8 of Ukraine's provinces, have resulted in significant civilian casualties and damage. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has received credible allegations of Russian forces using cluster munitions in populated areas at least 24 times. Human Rights Watch and other organizations have documented instances where Russian cluster munition attacks have killed and injured hundreds of civilians. To further deepen the narrative, it's essential to explore the moral and ethical implications of deploying cluster bombs in conflict zones. This complex issue forces nations and military strategists to confront the challenging balance between achieving strategic objectives and adhering to international humanitarian law principles to minimize civilian casualties and suffering. The controversy surrounding cluster bombs is not merely about their devastating efficiency, but also about the broader ethical question of how warfare is conducted in the modern era. As the international community continues to grapple with these dilemmas, the push for alternatives that can fulfill military needs without causing extensive collateral damage becomes increasingly urgent. Highlighting this ongoing debate encourages viewers to reflect on the importance of pursuing advancements in military technology and strategy that prioritize human dignity and the preservation of life, underscoring the critical need for innovation in how conflicts are fought and resolved. In summary, cluster bombs are a dark chapter in military history due to their indiscriminate effects on civilians and long-lasting danger. The Convention on Cluster Munitions has called for a ban on these weapons, reflecting a growing recognition of the need to prioritize human life over warfare tactics. However, the persistence of these weapons in arsenals and conflict zones, such as Ukraine, highlights the challenge of achieving a comprehensive ban. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to be notified of more upcoming videos.